Here at Gamers Station, we're dedicated to bringing you some of the biggest and best games out there. And today I've got a really big game that's on the market. It's called Disney Infinity, and specifically I've got the 2.0 edition of the game. And there's some interesting changes and things you should know between the differences between 1.0 and 2.0, but we'll get into that soon enough. So, in case you didn't know what Disney Infinity is, it's the new Disney game where they would like to take all of their copyrighted materials and all their trademarks and dump it into a single game so they can have the whole Disney universe all come together. Now, the big selling point of the game is that you get all the different characters and all the different worlds, but you don't get it all in one shot. It is sort of sold part by part, which might be a deterrent, but the cool thing about the game is the Infinity base, where you get this little platform here, and you can just plop the characters onto their slots, and you can even take these worlds and stick them on there, and you can play these characters in these worlds. And that's really cool, though there are some limitations. Not all characters can play in all worlds, but this sort of physical aspect to it is really cool, and it's got children in mind where even when the game's not running, these still act as toys. And just looking at the production quality, they are pretty well made. They're pretty sturdy, and they're not going to break anytime soon. You could probably chew on these and they'll be fine. But besides that, you also get power discs, which sort of introduce new worlds and new storylines. And there's a lot. That's the Avengers set, this is the Cars set, and you can see basically everything Disney is going to be put into Disney Infinity. But of course, costs will increase, manufacturing and shipping costs increase, all these physical products are going to be quite expensive. It's not a simple digital download. But besides all this cool stuff, we should get into the game and see if it's really holding up to the Disney universe.
Sometimes greatness cannot be seen from the outside. It's what's inside that counts.
So, getting into the game, is it worth it? Well, there's some really cool features on it. Playing your favorite characters is definitely a big feature of the game, and playing in those very popular worlds, definitely very good. So let's start with all the good things about Disney Infinity. So generally the gameplay is quite fun, the control of the characters is quite nice, exploring the worlds is interesting, and how they tie everything together is really cool. And one of the big selling points of Disney Infinity, the whole infinity part of it, is that the worlds are infinite, which means user-generated content. User-generated content meaning anyone can build their own world, build their own missions. There's ways to set up mini-games, racing tracks, your own sort of arenas, and all sorts of cool stuff which you can download off the webs, and you can play on other people's worlds and create your own world. You also get your own personal home and your own personal sort of garden to build your own things and build your own house, and it's very cool, very The Sims. It gives you that feeling of ownership of the whole game. And just in general, the missions themselves, they're quite fun, and the storylines are actually quite interesting as you go through them. Moving on to some of the things which might not please everyone. Some of the controls, especially on vehicles, it's quite twitchy, and as you're racing through, especially on racetracks or especially the flying vehicles, it's so twitchy to the point where sometimes you just get thrown around and thrown off, and especially taking tight corners can be quite difficult. And one big thing I noticed was playing through the Avengers missions is that the missions can get quite repetitive. It's not that it doesn't have enough content, it's got enough content there, but out of 10 missions, you might actually only have 3 or 4 formats of gameplay. It could be defeat these enemies, defend this point, go find this item, a fetch quest sort of thing. So the missions can get a bit mundane after a while. Though the whole leveling system and the characters themselves in the game and the gameplay of the characters is very fun. The special moves are really cool. My particular favorite is Iron Man, because Iron Man just has all the missiles and he can fly, and that's very useful in the game, being able to fly. In general, the game feels like sort of a Disney, Marvel, GTA sort of world, which is slightly more cartoony than actual GTA, because we have to keep the children in mind. But one big thing that might throw you off is if you're going from Disney Infinity 1.0 to Disney Infinity 2.0, there's a few things you have to take into account. On the back of the box, it actually has a compatibility thing here, and it tells you what's available, what can work with what, right? So this, so I had some Disney Infinity 1.0 stuff, so I have cars here. The characters transfer fine. You can take 1.0 cars, 1.0 characters, put them on the base, and it will work perfectly. The thing that really disappointed me was the worlds. The actual worlds where you can play on the worlds and play through the stories and missions, they do not transfer over. Putting this on the base will give you all the items, the buildings, the structures, the characters, all of those cool things from this world, and they'll put it into your toy box, which you can use in creating your own worlds and your own tracks and stuff like that. But you can't actually play on that world and go through the story missions, which was a little disappointing on that. But overall, the gameplay itself does hold up, though it might not be for everyone, so make sure you actually maybe check out some gameplay before actually getting into it, because getting into all of this is a huge investment if you really want to play all these different characters in all these different worlds. But these power cards, these power tokens sort of thing, they do transfer from 1.0 to 2.0. So if you want to play on these special missions, you can, no problem. So, should you get Disney Infinity? Well, there's a few things you should consider. If you're the kind of person who likes collectibles, then you're gonna love collecting these things, putting them on your shelves, displaying it, and really showing off your love for the Disney universe and your favorite parts. But you also need to make sure that you're not thinking Disney as in, oh, Mickey Mouse, Lion King, Little Mermaid. It is all of Disney stuff. So there's pirates, there's cars, Pixar stuff. It's really, really cool, and there's all of that. If you want to get into it, you have to consider the economic investment of everything, because if you just want to play a little bit, then it might not be worth investing in the base, investing in the game, and just a few pieces to play it. You really have to sort of get into it and get really, really into the online universe. And you really need to get into the whole create your own adventure, create your own worlds, and playing other people's adventures and worlds if you really want to get the longevity out of the game. But if you're just a really big fan, then you're going to love it. If you're not so into it, and if you're looking for really in-depth gameplay in terms of the story and the adventures, then it doesn't really go that deep in the adventure story modes. And I have a feeling that there's deeper adventures and deeper stories in the user-generated content. But overall, I had fun with it. I did actually complete it. I didn't get too bored halfway through or anything like that. It was actually a fun experience, and it's something that's really, really fun if you play with a friend. And not just online, playing with a friend next to you, having two controllers, playing through the missions, you get to pick your own characters and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. So that's basically it. It's good, but just make sure you know what you're getting into if you're going to start shelling out all the cash for all these pieces.